Today I'm going to be comparing the complete lineup from 11Six24 on the Hurache-X paddles. And here I have the 14 and 16 mil carbon, which is the Control Plus, and here I have the 14 and 16 mil Kevlar, which is the Control. And these are all really great paddles, and I've actually compared the 16 mil variations of these paddles previously, and I'll link that above here or in the description below, so you can go and have a look at that. But I've actually been able to play with the 14 mil variations over the past couple of months, and I've figured out which of these that I like the most, which I dislike the most, and which I think might be the best purchase for you. So let's get into it. So let's start off with the carbon fiber face, the Control Plus. Both of these are really great paddles, the 14 and the 16 mil. The 16 mil has a ton of pop, a ton of power. It actually ended up being a little bit too much for me. I found I was having a really tough time resetting with this paddle. My shots were going long because I can generate quite a bit of power on my own, and I found that I was actually hitting it long or hitting it too high, and that was kind of the end of the point. So I gave this paddle to my mom, and she has been loving it for the past couple of months. It gives her a lot of power, it has a lot of control, she dinks very well with it, but it really accentuates her play style because she's not necessarily able to generate a lot of power on her own, and this aids her in a little bit of that. The 14 mil version is a little bit less poppy, and I actually find that the sweet spot in the 14, instead of being a bit more centered here, goes further to the edges, and that tends to happen with some 14 mil paddles versus the 16, but I've actually come to really like this 14 mil paddle. Arguably, it might be my second favorite out of the entire lineup. I find that I can get really great drives. My serves are really good because it's a bit lighter weight. I can generate more topspin, and the speed at the net that I get from this paddle is probably the best out of the entire lineup, in my opinion. If I was to choose one of these for myself, obviously I'd be choosing the 14 mil, but this all obviously depends on your play style. So if you're someone that needs a bit of help generating power, then I would suggest the 16 over the 14. And if you want something that's slightly more forgiving, or if you're going from like that beginner intermediate level, probably go with the 16 versus the 14. All right, so let's get into the Kevlar ones now. So the 14 mil Kevlar, I hate to say it, was probably my least favorite out of the entire lineup. That's not to say it's a bad paddle, it just didn't work for my play style and maybe my skill level at this point. I found that the sweet spot on the 14 mil Kevlar was the smallest out of any of the paddles. You really had to hit it right here in the middle for it to go well. If you hit it around the edge, it almost felt like a dead paddle, and it wasn't the most confidence-inspiring thing. I can see that if you are a higher level player that liked having a bit of power but a bit more control, I could see this paddle working out quite well for you. But I'm trying to evolve my skill level from a 3.75 to a 4.0, and I found myself making a lot of errors, especially when dinking with this paddle, and I actually put it down a lot of the time. The 16 mil Kevlar is arguably my favorite paddle right now. It's tied with the 14 carbon, but I would say that the 16 Kevlar probably takes a little bit of the lead just because it's super forgiving. If you hit it anywhere around the edge, you're still gonna get a pretty decent shot. Your drives are really good, serves are really good, dinking is very controlled, hand speed at the net is quite good as well, and it's just an all-around really great paddle. And the 16 mil is the one that I gave to my dad. He loves it. One of the guys that I play with here at the Jar, I let him try this over his Selkirk paddle, and he was a good player before, but a little bit inconsistent. But once he started playing with this, he was making shots that I've never seen him hit before. He was so consistent, and he had the best games that he's ever played, and he went home and ordered this paddle right away. It'll be arriving this week, and he's super excited about it. And that's where, if I was to pick out of the whole lineup for the broader audience to choose, I would say that the 16 Kevlar is the best choice. It's the most forgiving, it still has a ton of power, it has a lot of control, it's fairly lightweight, not as lightweight as the 14 mil, but still a very good weight in the hands when you're at the net. And it's just a really great paddle overall. There's something about the Kevlar on this that just makes the ball sink, especially if you've got a lot of topspin on it. It will just get to the net and then dive. And it was actually very hard for me to read it when I've been playing against people that had this 16 mil Kevlar on, is the ball gonna make it over? Okay, yes it is, and it's just dropping. And really great shots, and I have a feeling that has to do with the Kevlar face and the 16 mil kind of allowing it to depress a little bit more more into the face than the 14 mil variations do. As you can tell, I have some favorites here. The 16 mil Kevlar is my top one. I would say the 14 mil carbon is my number 2. Then it would go 16 mil carbon, and last would be the 14 mil Kevlar. That's just my personal opinion. Obviously, you might have a different play style than me, and you might feel that these paddles and my interpretation is completely wrong. But from my experience and from what I've gathered from letting other people try these paddles, that's the general takeaway. So if I was to choose one, I would say 16 Kevlar. That's your best bet, likely going to play the best with it. That being said, Kevlar does have an adjustment period if you're used to playing on a carbon fiber. It will feel somewhat dead or muted is what some other people have said, but I actually tend to like the feeling of the 16 mil Kevlar the best. So if you want to pick up any of these, I will leave the link in the description below so you can go and check out 11Six24's website. I've got a promo code that will get you some money off on these paddles, and they're really good. I mean, for the price of what you're paying, you can't really go wrong with any of these, but it's very contingent on what's your game style and what's your play. But if you guys have any questions about any of these paddles, leave it in the description below. Send me a message on Instagram, and yeah, I'll gladly get back to you. Talk to you on the next one. Bye.